I haven't played the Downpour campaign since they first came out, and I thought it'd be fun to replay them as Survivor. Going into Artificer's campaign, I thought the only issue would be Metropolis. I didn't remember that region very well, and I had no idea if I'd be able to get through there without rocket jump. Even if I did make it through, I wasn't even sure if I could start the Scab Chief fight since he sits up on the tall chair. After starting the run, I actually ran into a different issue much sooner. You're immediately supposed to go through this level 4 Karma Gate to Shaded Citadel, but you can't get Karma from hibernating, and Survivor doesn't get Karma from holding scavengers. For some reason I thought I could just take a different route out of Garbage Waste, so I spent about 15 minutes trying to fight my way past the scavenger toll. Afterwards I started actually thinking about where I needed to go from here and realized that all of the other gates out of Garbage Waste also require more than one Karma. I tried using the Karma RD mod, but it didn't work for me, probably because I was down patched for compatibility with Unshackled co-op. I decided to just carry Artificer and let them hold scavengers to check their karma and open gates. I'm going to be playing on hard because I don't think I should survive an encounter just because something targeted Artificer instead of Survivor. This run is now Artificer lost their legs in the war and now Survivor is helping them get revenge for reasons that aren't important right now. On the way to Shaded Citadel, I reached a fork in the road, which made me realize that I have inherited Artificer's weakness to water. I spent a few minutes trying the other path, but then I tried to get more spears and died to a scavenger. I tried the water route again and found that it's possible, there's just not a lot of room for error. There's this big jump on the way to the gate, which left me with a pretty limited amount of space to find a scavenger with enough karma. I thought this was going to be a problem, but it turns out that finding scavengers in the campaign specifically about killing scavengers wasn't that big of a deal. The real issue was the combat, because pressing throw when my hands are empty causes me to pull Artificer off my back, and that means I would have to actually pay attention instead of just spamming grab and throw like I normally do. You might think this sounds like a skill issue, and you're right, but this did make me consider just playing as Survivor and only taking out Artificer when I need to open a gate. Technically, switching to the intended Slugcat whenever I got stuck was the original plan for this series, but I made up lore so now I felt committed to carrying around Artificer. Moving on to my next attempt. I killed a bunch of scavengers in this tunnel and then had the fun experience of trying to get their corpses out of the tunnel while they're surrounded by a million spears. I wasn't sure how to safely deal with this guy, so I spent about a minute waiting around hoping it would just go away. Eventually I decided to just go for it. This fight was kinda scuffed, but I think the scavenger was too traumatized to properly put up a real fight. I haven't really used Jolly Co-op before, so I didn't realize the Artificer can pick stuff up while on my back. This caused me to take a while trying to find a scavenger with enough karma. In the end I had wasted too much time this cycle and died to the rain. This was the moment where I realized that I didn't need to put Artificer down to pick up the corpses. This is definitely convenient for karma checks, but I'm still gonna make Survivor carry the bodies to the gate. Otherwise my movement won't be affected by the weight of the scavenger, and I would be able to pick up other items and fend off threats along the way. I definitely only survived this encounter because Artificer kept blocking the spider darts. This kind of feels like cheating, but Artificer has caused multiple of my deaths, so I think it's okay for them to save me this one time, even if a lot of those deaths were entirely my fault. Very normal Artificer dream. While editing, I realized that the dreams might be different if only Survivor is active, so I ran through a second time to check. This dream was basically the same, but there's two survivors instead. Throughout this run I kept having issues getting the shelters to close. Usually it's just kind of annoying, but right now it was about to get me killed. In this situation, I would usually tap, grab, and throw as I'm exiting the pipe so I can steal spears off scavengers and immediately stab them, but it's kind of hard to do that when I have to worry about accidentally throwing Artificer. It doesn't help that they land on their feet and I can't pick them up like that. This stream was pretty normal, but I did realize that this is the only time I'll get the rocket jump. I didn't have the rebind mod that I usually use, so I was kind of struggling. The survivor version of this was also pretty normal. The 5 pebbles dialogue was perfectly normal. Since Survivor is player 2, I thought I could grab a neuron fly without breaking everything, but apparently I'm just not allowed to leave. Once the dialogue was over, I could leave the room, but Artificer was thrown out the other exit and I couldn't switch camera focus. I thought about trying to blindly navigate Survivor over to Artificer's location, but I was afraid of losing him to zero gravity, so I decided it would be okay for me to move Artificer a little just so I could see. I would like to point out that so far I have only needed Artificer for that first gate out of garbage waste. Now it's time for me to wander around Metropolis and hope that this is actually possible. I feel like I should mention that there's not a rule against looking stuff up, I just prefer not to until I get annoyed. This was the first real fork in the road. I went up first and had a very eventful climb. I was pretty sure scavengers couldn't throw directly up or down, so I felt safe climbing past them. While trying to wait out this king vulture, I ended up dying to a scavenger. This time I decided to go right. This route had a big wall that I had to scale. I wanted to use as few spears as possible so I wouldn't have to deal with spear spawning RNG. Instead I got to deal with grapple worm RNG as I tried to get into this tunnel. There's a tunnel right here, but I didn't realize that until later, so I thought I needed 1 spear to get through this room. I messed around in the next room for a bit before concluding that I would need more spears. That route seemed kind of annoying, so I went back to try the other path again. A grapple worm didn't seem very useful for this route, so I swapped it out for a squid kata. I immediately found a shelter and decided to trade the squid kata for a spear, since creature spawns are more consistent than spear spawns. I did not realize that we were right next to a scavenger outpost thing with plenty of spears. All those spears were useful for this climb, but they didn't help with the next jump. thought that pouncing from the top instead might work, but I felt like having a squid kata would be useful in the future. Even with a squid kata, I was too short to get up there without a spear. The squid katas had fled from the original spawn area, so I had to wander a bit to find them. I tried again with a white squid kata because I thought they carried you a little bit higher, but according to Wiki, they just have more stamina. If I was smart, I would have sheltered right now so I can save that spear in the wall and wake up with a squid kata. I spent a while tunnel juking before my squid kata was killed. After a lot more tunnel juking, I was also killed. Getting a squid kata is kind of a pain, and I didn't even know if I would actually need one later, so I decided to try pouncing the gap to see what lied ahead. I wasn't really confident that a squid kata could get me across here, but I definitely can't make this on my own. I waited here for 2 minutes and nothing happened, so I just quit out of the game. Why are you Saint? This time the dream ended on its own, but I went back to do a little more testing. I loaded the dream again with a unique looking slug cat in every slot, and it looks like they're just players 1, 2, and 3 with player 1's body color. That wasn't even close. Time to go back to the other route. While struggling to get back to the other shelter, I learned about a new path. I had no idea where the next shelter net direction was, so I kept trying to get back to the other one. Now that that ordeal is over, I can start investigating the new path. I have to climb over some pillar things, but there's conveniently a bunch of spears everywhere, so they weren't a big deal. Unfortunately, all those spears were there because I was approaching a scab toll. I never figured out if I could get to the next room because I got licked by a grapple worm and couldn't get it off me. This time I went down, where I had to deal with both Mirror Birds and Scavengers. I thought this combo would be a problem since the Scavengers can get me into tunnels while I'm trying to hide from the Mirror Birds, but the Mirror Birds just kind of dealt with the Scavengers for me. Now I'm at the final leg of the journey before reaching the Scab Chief. I spent a while exploring this inner 5 Pebbles region before finding this room, which I recognized and knew I was heading in the right direction. Climbing up here as Survivor is pretty slow and tedious, and the Scavengers trying to kill me along the way were not helping. I also basically have to do this twice because this room has a twin. I didn't respawn immediately because I wanted to see how long it would take the Scavenger to kill a stationary Artificer. It took a whole minute and it couldn't even do it on its own, it had to call in backup. The run back isn't very hard, but it does take like 3 minutes and it's mostly just slowly crawling through tunnels. I accidentally dropped my grapple worm while trying to steal a Scavenger's bomb, and that's a pretty big problem because I can't get through here on my own. I also failed to retrieve it on the way down, and now I don't have a way of getting back up to it. I spent a while exploring some more, hoping to find a better path, but I didn't find one. Maybe climbing past them isn't as safe as I thought. For some reason I thought it was a good idea to start exploring again to find a better route. This still didn't work, but I somehow wasn't punished for taking a random 5-minute detour. The first time I got to this room, I didn't realize how close I was to the shelter, and I'm kinda glad I didn't know because I would have been incredibly upset. Now I need to figure out how to start this fight. First I had to check if I could just climb onto the platform. That didn't work and I honestly didn't really expect it to, so now I get to try my only other idea. There may have been a small oversight. In case you didn't know, you can throw items directly upward during a backflip by pressing throw while holding directly up. I didn't consider the fact that pressing up causes you to grab poles, which means you're no longer in the middle of a backflip, so you'll just throw forward. I did some testing and noticed that projectiles carry a little bit of your horizontal momentum, so you can throw the bomb from off to the side and still hit the platform. Well, that was easy. It was taking a while for the ending to trigger, so I handed the match to Artificer and that seemed to work. Later I went back to see if Survivor could trigger the ending on their own, which means I have more Scav Chief footage. Also, the platform is at the perfect height, so you can just do this. This time the ending triggered immediately, even though I never picked up the mask, so I don't know why it took so long the first time. Next, I want to get the Ascension ending. I was originally planning to load a backup save after killing the Scav Chief, but a good friend of mine told me that killing the Scav Chief just resets your karma and doesn't prevent you from gaining more afterwards. For some reason I believed them, even though I knew that the Echo literally calls this a point of no return, so now you get to watch me run around with the Scav Chief mask while I figure out how to get to the Echo. Also, Survivor spawned in a wall. I still can't get up there, so I just had Artificer walk down, although I'm now realizing that I could probably just knock them down with a bomb since they don't take explosion damage. It was really nice being able to run past the scavengers like this for once. I didn't want to swing under the platform because I wasn't confident that I could get back up, so I spent a while trying to get on the upper platform from more distance. Eventually I gave up and hoped that pouncing from here would get me far enough. This wasn't the plan, but it worked out anyway. Hey, I know this room. I was pretty confident that the pipe up there would lead to the Echo, but that shadow convinced me that it was time for a nap. Last time I was struggling to get up there with a grapple worm, so this time I wanted a squid kata. I can still test this without Artificer. After all that work, I found out that they don't give you enough height for this one jump. I also tried it with a white squid kata and still couldn't make it. I let the lizard carry me around for a bit so I could scout out the area. This was definitely the right direction. Last time I was here, I couldn't get the grapple worm to stick to the higher part of the wall. This time I was able to do it. I'm pretty sure you need a combination of height and distance from the wall to make it, but I never really got consistent at this. I kind of panicked and fell, and before I could make it up again, some scavengers showed up. The mask is supposed to stop scavengers from attacking me, but they started raising their spears and I started panicking. The scavengers never threw anything at me, but in my panic I threw a spear into Artificer. This time I brought a spear with me for some extra height and then had another scavenger encounter. Now that I'm past that room, all I need to do is go up. This segment took me a while because I'm bad at using grapple worms, but other than that, the rest of the journey was pretty easy. I did see a lot of scavengers along the way, but the mask seemed to do a good job of protecting me, even if I didn't fully trust it. I finally made it to the top, and as you would expect, I cannot gain karma after killing the Scav Chief. After being very upset with my friend, I went to the Rain World backup system. After killing the Scav Chief, I had taken a break from this run to do the Rivulet and Spearmaster runs, so I was kinda worried that I wouldn't have a usable backup save. I had exactly one. This save was in the lower train cart area. I failed to get back up the way I came from and then got in a fight with some scavengers and died. I had the Nomad passage because its progression is broken, so I used it to warp to the shelter by the Echo. Now I get to do this climb again without the mask. That was really stressful, but the rest of the echoes shouldn't be as hard to reach. Remember how I'm specifically carrying Artificer so that they can hold scavengers to open gates? I did not remember that, so I thought I needed to passage out of Metropolis, so I reloaded the save again to get my passage back. I found a different route to get back to the other shelter, although this route goes through the scavenger toll. Now I get to do this for a third time. I was hoping that that white lizard would chase the scavenger, but then it aggroed on me. I thought this would be a problem, but it stopped caring about me once I got to the next screen. The climb wasn't that bad this time, but I was still really annoyed after doing this for the third time. Now I can actually get the rest of the echoes, starting with the one at the wall. At first I was going to passage to 5 pebbles, but then I remembered that the top of the wall exists, so I decided to warp to the wall shelter instead. The rest of the echoes are in a fairly straight line from here to Subterranean, except for the Shaded Citadel echo, so now I need to take a detour to get to it. This stream was fairly normal aside from everyone being Artificer, so let's skip to the survivor-only version. I've completed my detour and now I can head back up to Chimney Canopy and start collecting the rest of the echoes. I don't like going through the leg and underhang, so I'm just gonna head there through Industrial. Hey, we both survived. Never mind. The rest of the dreams are basically the same, so this is the last time I'm going to talk about them. When I got to Chimney Canopy, I didn't have enough food to hibernate. I wanted to get bat flies from the next room over, but the scavengers were having a war with the vultures, so I couldn't get through. I wasn't paying attention. The chimney shelter isn't that far from here, but I was still worried about dying and not having enough karma for the gate. I was going to get food from the nearby popcorn plant, so I figured it wouldn't be a big deal to starve to keep my karma up. I ended up dying several times, so that was a pretty good idea. I've successfully saved in Chimney Canopy, and now I just need to get through it. Despite that first cycle, Chimney wasn't actually that bad. Sky Islands was a lot worse. Next up is farm arrays. Normally I stick to the right half and top of farm arrays, but there's scav holes blocking that path in both directions. Instead I'm just gonna go towards the subterranean gate and then take the lower route back to the Echo. Since I was already here, I decided to talk to the subterranean Echo. I don't take this route very often, so I thought I could make it back this way. These tunnels are too wide to wall jump up, but a bunch of scavengers showed up and brought me an infinite supply of spears to climb with. Unfortunately, I had a lapse in judgment and got myself killed. I knew there was a slightly different path to get there, so I called a reindeer to bring me back so I can find it. Why are there so many scavengers here? Eventually most of them fell and got stuck in that gap, and I was able to pick off the last one. Now I just need to get to the depths with a scavenger. I didn't want to lose any more karma, so I started starving. I made it to the depths, but I didn't really think about the fact I'd have to carry a scavenger through here. Survivor can't climb poles while carrying a scavenger, so I tried throwing some spears into the wall, and for a second it seemed like it was working, but I couldn't get past the second spear. I went into sandbox mode to see if I could do this if I wasn't starving. I didn't have scavengers unlocked on this file, so I just used a dead hunter, which is slightly lighter than a scavenger. This still wasn't working, which means Artificer will have to carry the scavenger through the depths. I thought about having Artificer only carry the scavenger when it was absolutely necessary, but then I almost immediately got stopped by a pillar and realized that this would be really annoying. I've never really thought about how much you need to climb in parkour just to get through here. This is where I have to say goodbye to Survivor. I had Artificer run the rest of the way, and the ending played out as usual. This run went a lot better than I expected. Metropolis wasn't too hard to get through once I figured out where I was going, and my scav chief concerns were solved by explosives. I didn't really think about the scavenger karma thing until I started the run, and I thought it would be a reoccurring issue. You actually only need the scavenger karma for the first gate and to get past the Guardians. It was so much of a non-issue that I forgot that that was the entire reason I was carrying Artificer. It's not like I forgot that I was carrying Artificer either, like this was something I constantly had to think about. Aside from getting out of Metropolis, I didn't even have to plan around it, it just kinda worked out. If you don't like that I used the passage to get out of Metropolis, you can still talk to enough echoes beforehand to leave normally. The worst part about this run was definitely the Metropolis Echo incident, hence my file naming. Also, I think I killed Artificer more than the scavengers did.